Hello, welcome. Hi, you guys. I will give everyone just a second to pop on. Love the irons. Thank you. See, while they're joining here, I'm live in two places, two area codes. Got YouTube and TikTok. Hello, Mr. Johnny. Hello, YouTube. Oh, thank you, Dan. I like that one. That one's very cool. What are these? Dan has reached a grifter. All right. Hello, YouTube. Okay, we got a few. We'll wait and have a few more. Happy Monday. Haven't been live for a while. How's the weather? Someone over here asked if I was Italian. Yes, I am Italian. I'm vamping, letting people come on. I am Italian. My last name, my great grandfather immigrated through Ellis Island back in the day, him and my great grandmother. So all of the Sansoni is actually, it's pretty rare last name, even for Italians. So a lot of the Sansonis that are in the United States, I'm probably related to most of them, and most of them reside in the Northeast. Legalize marinara. You know what? I had my friend got me a button from Philadelphia, like little, is there a Little Italy in Philadelphia? I think that's where she got it. All right, what's up, YouTube? Let's get started. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the Roosevelt Hotel. I haven't talked to you too much since I got back from New York City and kind of experienced myself. So we'll ease into it a little bit. So the Roosevelt Hotel, it keeps pausing. Much better. Okay. My service here isn't the best, so I very much apologize if it's a little bit in and out today. It should be a lot better the next time. Um, so they're essentially calling the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City the new island, because that's sort of becoming the hub of processing for a lot of the migrants that are coming to, or illegal immigrants, however you want to describe them, that are coming to New York. They're all going through. A lot of them are coming through Port Authority, the bus terminal, and then they're heading over to the Roosevelt where they're being processed. And I went there. I'll show you my own footage of just walking around the outside. Hi, Neil. And I'll also show you some other footage. So Real American Voice, they're more, I don't know if they're independent, but hello guys. Real American Voice, they visited the hotel yesterday and got some good footage. So I'll just show you a little bit. If you want to see the rest, go to their Twitter. It's Real American Voice. That's their publication. But here is the footage that they got from the Roosevelt. And what's happening in New York City is they're getting like hundreds and hundreds of people are still coming in every single day. Despite New York City, despite the mayor actually going to South America to try and deter people from coming. But unfortunately, the bed has already been made because people have gotten the word that New York City is a right to shelter city. So the word is already down there. And I was just telling the audience that's watching right now on TikTok, I was letting them know, um, actually you're gonna hear it explained, but I was letting them know what started out as sort of a political stunt kind of turned into something totally different, because Greg Abbott sent a few buses up to New York City, right? And then people in New York City realized, oh, this is like, they have to give us shelter. They have to give us, because New York City is a right to shelter state. So they're kind of their own. It's not funny, but New York City is, they're kind of their own worst enemy in this whole situation, which is pretty wild. So Actually, before I start with that, I'm going to play you a clip of Joe Rogan. So, yesterday on Joe Rogan, he posted the episode with Coleman Hughes, who's I really like him. He is very middle of the ground, very common sense, very objective, but right leaning commentator. So, they're talking about New York City.
You live in New York City.
Yes.
And
I'm good. I can't complain.
we were just talking about you live in New York City.
Yes.
And whether or not the migrant crisis is a real thing.
It's
Like,
a real
you notice
thing.
it.
It's a real thing. You notice it in Port Authority. And I think when Eric Adams gets in front of the country and says, I can't handle this, I think he's telling the truth. Right? And some people have accused him of racism, bizarrely, but I don't think it comes from that. I looked into this, and the part people don't know about this story is really the full unfolding of it goes back to the 1930s. New York State made a constitutional amendment to the state constitution, which required the state to.
So this is the right to shelter thing, which kind of makes sense when you think about it, because there's a lot of climate happening in New York City. So you would think it's good. You should want to shelter people. It gets really hot and humid in the summer. It gets very cold and frigid in the winter, but nobody could have foreseen thousands upon thousands upon thousands of migrants coming to New York City
to provide housing for the homeless, essentially. And it was sort of vaguely worded. So in the 80s and 90s, the courts in New York began interpreting that more and more strictly. Almost no other state, I'm not sure if any other state actually has something in its state constitution requiring that kind of a thing. So basically what happened is the judges ended up interpreting this more strictly. Obviously, the original purpose of this is for New Yorkers that are homeless to be housed. But they ended up interpreting it so strictly that when the Republican governors in Texas and Florida began sending a few thousand migrants up to New York City as kind of an FU to the liberal cities that have declared themselves sanctuary cities without actually having to deal with the kind of border crisis that Texas does. The first few thousand found that legally New York had to house them. And then word got down to Mexico that if you make it to New York City, you will not be turned away. Legally, you don't even have to be a citizen for the state amendment to apply to you. So what began as a few, let's say the first 10 or 15,000 were sent by the Republican governors as a kind of political tactic, has now become tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands coming of their own volition to New York City. And it's the only state in the country where Mayor Adams has no legal recourse to send people elsewhere. He actually cannot do it. He's tried to do executive orders, but he legally can't because it's in the state constitution. It's above his power. And now it's its own. It's taken on a life of its own, way over and above what the Republican governors started. So
that I haven't heard somebody explain it quite like that yet, but it actually makes perfect sense. They have become their own worst enemy. Their own policies are now acting against them, and what started as sort of a political stunt as a way to alleviate some of the stress from Republican governors, like he said, took on just a complete life of its own. And that's also where you have Mayor Eric Adams down in South America trying to tell people, don't come. And by the way, the proposed budget. So Biden last Wednesday addressed the nation, which I was like, oh boy, what is he going to say? This is the first time I think he did a primetime address the nation. He addressed, the monies that he wants to go to Ukraine, the money that he wants to go to Israel, a few other things, and then there was border security in there. Well, here's the thing, and this is what you should know too, because a lot of Democrats will push back and they'll say, well, Republicans turned down funding that could have gone to the border. Okay, but what exactly is the funding for? Is it to just hire more more processing people to get people in the country quicker, because that's typically what it is. Usually you'll look at it and there's nothing for actual border security. There's nothing that's actually going to slow down the flow of anyone coming over the border. It's just going to expedite the processing process. So whenever they say Republicans shot down funding, what exactly was the funding for? Is it slowing down? Is it slowing the spread? Okay, and here is a clip. I'm going to show you the Real American Voices clip outside of the Roosevelt Hotel, and then I'll actually show you my own personal clip. Me, I walked by the Roosevelt Hotel. So.
I'm with media.
Someone over here said, I'm afraid I am an immigrant. What are you talking about?
It's like they got a new intake. ¿De dónde son? Ah. No, it's public.
So they did the same exact thing to me. It's security that's working inside of the hotel. They'll come out and try to make you move, but you're allowed to film outside. In New York City is a one-party consent state, which means you only need one-party consent. If you're out in public, you can film. But the same thing happened to me. It wasn't this particular security guard. It was a different one, but it was the same exact thing. I was outside. I didn't even have my camera pointed inside at anything, but I was outside just filming the sidewalk, and somebody came out and tried to tell me to stop. And I was like, no, I'm allowed to film. But it seems like it's the same story for everyone that encounters them. I was trying to read the other comments. All right, so let's keep watching this.
Yeah, I'm with media. Real America's Voice. Are you? Well, you then go inside.
If you look inside, you can see just the sheer amount of people that are in there processing. And somebody over here, what's interesting about the TikTok lives is I'll have a lot of people jump in that don't necessarily watch me. So it's actually really cool because I'll get a lot of outside opinions. And someone just told me that I was afraid of immigrants and that I'm using word salad. That's not what it is at all. It's actually mostly about, first of all, knowing who people are and where they come from. But more importantly, or just as importantly, it's about resources. You only have so many resources. And what's happening are a lot of these cities are running out of resources. Mayor Eric Adams has already said they're going to have to cut services they're going to have to cut every single public service to be able to maintain this situation. So that's not coming from me. That's coming from Eric Adams. That's coming from Kathy Hochul. That's coming from the mayor. That's coming from the governor. You can't be a welfare state with open borders. And another thing about Ellis Island, so people will compare what's happening right now to Ellis Island. Those are two very completely different things. Like I was just saying, my great-grandparents came in through Ellis Island. So when they came through, they had to get health screenings. They had to have a sponsor within the U.S., and they had to have job prospects. They had to have all of those things. If you were sick, you were sent back. And if you didn't have those other things, you weren't in. Also, what's really important is at that time, there was not a welfare state. So that's one of the biggest things here. And what you're going to see, and what you're already seeing, you're going to see cuts to law enforcement, public health services, all kinds of social services. You're going to see overcrowding at public hospitals and things like that because there are only so many resources to go around. And that's the real issue. It's just bringing people in a common sense, orderly fashion. That's not what we're doing. It's chaos and it's a free for all. And if you want to see the chaos, all you have to do is go in front of one of these hotels. That's all you have to do.
Then you got to go inside, man. Outside, I can film. Yes, I can, man. It's public. Where are you from? Okay. Who do you work for? Well, you don't have to. But when you're outside in public, what's that? I'm covering what's happening here at the hotel. So I'm just filming it for the news I work for. Do you guys work for an organization?
So he's talking to the security guard right now.
Okay, no English. Thanks, man. Apparently this is the intake. They're bringing more in. We're at the Roosevelt Hotel.
How crowded
We've got
it
all these scooters,
There's
some
the
stolen,
scooters.
no license plate, all parked illegally on the street. This whole hotel, 400 plus rooms. It's coming down to show you the impact of what Biden's doing on our southern border.
He comes back out.
Venezuela?
The security guard, you can't see it here. The security guard comes back. He goes in and then he comes back out to try to get him to go away. He's not even filming at the door. He's just filming on the sidewalk.
¿Cuántos días aquí?
Llegué hoy en la madrugada.
¿Ah?
Llegué anoche en la madrugada.
Ah, okay.
Anoche en la madrugada.
Okay. ¿A dónde vas? ¿Es New York? ¿Fini?
Sí, sí, me
Okay.
quedo aquí en Nueva York.
Okay. ¿Familia aquí?
Ahorita que viene un primo mío.
Thank you. So that's outside. They have a whole video on their Twitter that's like 7 minutes long, but that's sort of the gist of what it is outside. Now this is my video. I'm sorry I had to download a TikTok video, so I'm talking over my video, but you'll see what it was like for me. All I did, I was just there for maybe 5 minutes because I did not want to. I was alone, but I went during the day. I knew there was security. I knew there was National Guard. So I just walked past the hotel just to kind of get a feel for it and just to see it for myself. So I'll show you what I experienced. Past right now the Roosevelt Hotel. Whoever just said, that is so gross. What is wrong with you? Someone just said, I'm sorry, I have to stop this. Someone just said that voice sounds like a DV victim. What is the matter with you? If I could concentrate and block that right now, I would. That is so gross. No. Okay. So that was like right when I got there from my Uber, and it was kind of a shock because there was just a bunch of guys hanging out up front. So I was like, all right, let's go. We're doing this. Okay. We still just need to do this here. It's just the bait. So that's what it looked like. Someone said, didn't know Sarah was a grassroots reporter. I'm not. And what I learned in this situation is I will never, ever be a grassroots reporter. I don't want to be at the scene of anything. So far, this has happened to me. Thank you very much. So far, this has happened to me several times where I've been an unintended grassroots reporter. The first time was in 2020 when there were riots all around my home. And I was reporting on all the riots, and then all of a sudden they came to my doorstep. I'm not cut out to be, I'm not a citizen journalist in that manner. It's not my thing. But you can just see, it's hard to explain. It was just a different feeling around the hotel. It was just very different. Why did Trump say that PAL didn't work for him? I don't know. Yeah, it was just a whole different feeling around there, and it was really interesting. And I think I told you guys, but some of the other things that you'll notice around the city are a lot of people with really young kids selling candy, just sitting on the side of the road. Um, just a lot of things that you wouldn't see before. And this is another thing that you'll see. So this was just a random sidewalk, and this isn't even doing it justice, but something else you'll see all throughout the city, or you'll see just groups of men hanging out on bikes, just waiting for a food delivery to come in. And they're all just kind of sitting, just a lot of men just sitting idly all around the city. Which again, I didn't feel bothered by anyone. No one bothered. They were minding their own business. But it's just something that is different that you haven't seen before. And you think more and more and more people are coming. So again, it's just what's the plan? What's the end game? There doesn't seem to be a plan or an end game. So what you'll see here, I'll pause it. So what you're going to see is on this side of this lady, you're going to see a bunch of bikes and a bunch of dudes just on the bikes waiting. And then to the other side of her, just a bunch of guys just sitting there. They're not eating or drinking anything. They're just kind of sitting there, just not doing anything. And you see this all over the place. So they're waiting on delivery. And I think I stopped, but later on down the road, there were a few other guys on that end just waiting on delivery. Those are some of the things you'll see. And you can also see how just being in the city, you can kind of be oblivious to it, or you don't notice it unless you're kind of looking and thinking to yourself, okay, that's different. It's really interesting. So it is just a very, very different city. And the numbers for September have come in. And here's the thing, because the numbers keep increasing, they're not necessarily decreasing. So again, what is the plan? Where are we putting everyone? Because there's not enough people, or there's not enough room for all of these people in New York City. And September, we had the highest numbers ever. The CBP numbers came out for the month of September and for the fiscal year 2023. So we're now at, since Joe Biden took office, 8 million people have entered the country. Fiscal year 2023 is the highest ever on record, as well as September is the highest on record. So it seems like each month the numbers are increasing, they're not decreasing, and there doesn't seem to be a plan. And again, you can't have open borders and be a welfare state. You can maybe do one or the other. I don't know. Yeah, and honestly, and I'll look at some of the interviews with, like you just saw the Real American Voice. He was talking to that man from Venezuela. Like nobody's saying they're all bad people, and you can't blame them for wanting a better life and to be taking advantage of what is available to them. We're allowing it. We're encouraging it. By we, I mean the big man with the plan, Biden. Someone asked, I don't know if you were talking to me. Someone, why don't I leave if it's so bad? I don't live in New York City. I was visiting. That's probably why I won't be moving there anytime soon. Okay. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit because I saw this clip of Tucker Carlson. I thought you might want to see it, especially with everything that is going on right now. So he's talking about Trump. Don't mean to trigger anyone. Trump. I'm talking about Trump. I know you guys are, I don't know, because sometimes people come in my lives over here that are just wandering in, and then I say things that trigger people. So Tucker Carlson was on Russell Brand's podcast over the summer, and they had a discussion about Trump, and I thought it was an interesting time to bring it back up because I've always said Trump has, believe me, I have criticisms of Trump and how he did things. Many people do, and they are valid. But one thing about Trump, I don't think that anyone can deny, even his biggest critics, are how he handled foreign policy. And I think now than ever, many people are appreciating how he handled foreign policy. And I've always said that if there's one thing about Trump, foreign policy, foreign policy, foreign policy. He just had it. And I think that's a part of him just being a business person, knowing how to meet with people. He wrote the book called The Art of the Deal, knowing how to negotiate and things like that. I do think he was very talented when it came to foreign policy. That being said, criticisms in other places are very, very fair. And that doesn't mean his foreign policy was perfect, but it was sure a hell of a lot better than what we've seen recently. So here is actually Tucker, who I was surprised to have this stance. This is him on Russell Brand's podcast. I believe this was back in July.
I think we're going to see Trump's emergence. Where am I on Trump now? Well, I love Trump. Personally, I think we're going to see Trump's emergence as the most significant thing to happen in American politics in 100 years, because he reoriented the Republican Party against the wishes of Republican leaders. But when I think about Trump right now, so it's July of 2023.
July of 2023. I almost had it right.
I'm struck by his foreign policy views. Trump is the only person with stature in the Republican Party, really, who's saying, wait a second, why are we supporting an endless war in Ukraine? And that, leaving aside whether Trump's going to get the nomination or get elected president or would be a good president, I can't even assess that. All I can say at this point is I'm so grateful that he has that position. He's right. And everyone in Washington's wrong. Everyone. And Trump is right on that question. And it's a big question. That war is reshaping the world. It's reshaping the economy of the world. It's reshaping populations. I was just in Romania last week.
I forgot about that. He was in Romania over the summer. I believe he was interviewing Andrew Tate. Yeah, that's why I was actually surprised to hear Tucker say this, because I honestly didn't think that he liked Trump. I feel like he has a love-hate. But that's what I mean. Even some of his biggest critics, you have to admit, I was surprised he said I love Trump. But I think you have to admit that when it comes to foreign policy, he was pretty spot on.
Which is, of course, shares a border with Ukraine. The refugees in that region, the number of people killed in that war, Europe will never be the same because of this war. And it really matters. And Trump alone among popular figures in both parties understands that. And I'm grateful for it. Whether he gets the nomination or gets elected, words really matter. Saying something true out loud matters. And he is saying true things about Ukraine.
Yeah, so interesting clip. Tucker Carlson and Russell Brand. Oh, yeah, I think you're right. He was one of the first presidents in years not to start a war. And people were surprised. People thought that he was going to be the crazy unhinged person that's going to hit the red button. I remember that. I remember that very well. Very, very well. All right, you all. Well, I think that's everything I have for you this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. I'll be back tomorrow again at 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll do a much longer stream. And if you want me to do any PMs, I'll do PMs. Trump will be speaking around 3 today. Oh, good timing. You're dismissed. Class dismissed. But I'll be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll give you a notification and maybe more. But thank you very much. You guys have a lovely Monday. And hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Bye. And stream.